Hi everybody, welcome back to Gender and Society. Today we're going to be taking a little look at what we would call personality types and sexual interest. Okay, this is somewhat independent of gender identity, okay, especially when it comes to uh, sexual interest or excuse me, preference for the most part. But we're going to do our best to hash this out, and hopefully by the end of this it'll make some understanding. There's going to be a lot of what we call scales or spectrums in this instruction, because it turns out that people are not what we would call black and white or fit into boxes. If that theme hasn't hit home in this semester yet, please allow it to do so now. Okay, so if you were to think of what we used to think of as what we would call sexual orientation, you may think of certain types, mainly straight and gay. Okay, so this is what we call a just a four-box matrix. Okay, where we have male and female. Typically or traditionally, when we saw a male with a male, we would consider that a homosexual relationship, and a female with a male would be a straight relationship. And we can just put these in these little quadrants. A female with a female would again be a homosexual relationship, meaning homo, same. Okay, this is a traditional box that you may be familiar with in terms of what we used to call sexual orientation. And then there was this seemingly thing called bi, which is when these lines were kind of like, crossed. I'm going to put a big X through this representation because it turns out as we investigate further, this is seems to be inaccurate for the most part. Okay, what we have is something a little bit more of a spectrum. I got some more cue cards here. Before we get to sexual preference, though, or back to it anyway, we're going to take a little look at something called, well, let's do this. Let's do personality. Okay, so again, if you wouldn't say, we've been talking about the difference between masculine and feminine, and we've got that here on the personality scale, which we'll be filling in shortly. Masculine and feminine personality traits and hobbies and such, it's hard to exactly say how much that is biological or evolutionary and how much of that is social. Okay, it's very difficult for us to parse out the difference and what is intrinsic masculine, if there is such a thing, or intrinsically feminine, if there is such a thing. Okay, so we're kind of going with what doing the best we can. So if we did accept that there was such thing as masculine behaviors or masculine personality types or masculine hobbies and such, we'll use blue for male, even though blue is arbitrary. Okay, it could have been any color for boys, but we're going to use blue because I have it. It tends that men tend to be masculine in their personality types. But because it's a curve, it is not all. Alright, so this is how this is represented. Blue is the male population. They tend to be on the masculine side of personality. Okay, this man right here is extremely masculine and participates in masculine hobbies, drinks masculine beverages. Okay, has other masculine personality attributes, as whatever you would define that as. This male over here in the population would exhibit a lot of feminine, extremely feminine, personality types and hobbies. All right. This person right here in the middle would be right in the middle. Okay, would have equal personality of masculine and feminine personality traits. Please keep in mind all these scales that I'm going to be drawing today are estimates, okay, at best, or ideal situations. All right, because we really don't have the information. We cannot remove all social cues and information since birth. It's nearly impossible to do. So this is kind of an estimation of where we would believe excuse me, males would lie on the personality spectrum. Females tend to be feminine in their hobbies, personalities, interests, and other attributes. Okay, so as you can see, they tend to be like that. All right, this woman here, you know, exhibits whatever you would call feminine personality traits. This woman here would exhibit, you know, masculine personality traits. Okay, if you want to say drives a truck and hunts with a knife and eats the meat raw, whatever. Okay, and then this one here would be right down the middle. Again, this is an estimation that we have. Okay. Let's come back to that in a second. All right, because now we're going to talk about sexual preference. Okay, sexual preference is not the box, which is where you say you are solely oriented. Okay, or the orientation. Preference seems to be what you would tend to prefer. All right, and in that what sexual trigger tends to come from which side of the spectrum. Okay, men tend to have a masculine sexual preference, which has them attracted to femininity. Okay, so this male right here very, very, very much likes femininity. Okay, if you would say females, fine, but for now let's just say femininity to keep with the scale. Okay, so this guy really, really likes femininity. This guy here, this is the male population again, really, really likes, okay, masculinity. Right? This is like, or men. Okay, so this would kind of be like this guy right here really, really likes guys. This guy here really, really likes girls. Okay, women tend to prefer men. Okay, but not all. So the curves are nearly identical. Again, this is an estimation, and it's seen in a world without social information. Okay, so biology unmolested. So this female here really, really likes masculinity. Really, really likes guys. This female here really, really prefers women. Okay, so or femininity. So this scale kind of illustrates to us that it is a spectrum. Just as personality, no one is 100%, by the way, this is an interesting thing, no one can be 100% masculine, okay? The most masculine man on earth, you know, might cry at a Lifetime movie or something, okay? The most preferred masculine guy there is in the world, there's still that small sliver of a chance of femininity, in other words, a male would elicit a sexual response or sexual interest. Okay, so just like no one is 100% necessarily feminine or masculine, no one is necessarily preferenced to pure same-sex, or excuse me, straight behavior, if you will. Okay, boy, this language is tough, isn't it? Okay, so this is very interesting because this tells us some interesting things about humans and sexuality and personality. Because where you register on the personality spectrum does not necessarily correspond to where you'll be on the sexual preference spectrum. So where you are, let's say if you're extremely, extremely masculine personality-wise in terms of your hobbies and such, you could be extremely prefer men. Okay. Also, if you're a feminine male, you could very much be straight, as it were. Okay, or be on this side of the sexual preference spectrum. Okay, females, it works the same way. Okay, so this very, very feminine lady could really, really like, okay, like girls. Okay, all right, just as a very, very masculine, perhaps woman, could very much be straight. Okay, or prefer men. All right, so that's one thing to look at when you see these spectrums, that they do not necessarily correspond. And the subculture, I guess you call it gay subculture to some, have kind of invented interesting groupings for some of these, okay, whether they acknowledge that, whether you're in a group or not acknowledge that, they have, you know, kind of categorized people depending on their personality types and their sexual preference, which is what subcultures do when they want to stand out and identify themselves, okay? It's very fascinating. Okay, so that's one aspect. Where you are does not necessarily correspond to where you'll be. on the other. All right. Another interesting concept is that where you, if you're straight in the middle, we have names for this. Personality types, this is called androgyny, and that's very difficult to read. But if you're dead in the middle, the word is androgynous. Okay, and I guess everyone technically is androgynous to some extent. And androgyny is usually considered 50-50 in that you represent both masculine and feminine personality traits equally. Okay, so that's androgyny. The dead in the middle here, you may want to guess is bisexual, but that is actually not the case. Bisexuality exists on the entire spectrum because remember, it's a preference. You know, even if you're all the way on the side, there's still that small sliver of a chance. And you're right in the middle is something called pansexuality. Okay, pansexuality, dead in the middle, refers to a person who gives equal weight, or there's an equal percentage chance that they will be elicited a sexual reaction from a male or a female. Okay, so that's right down the middle. All right. Okay, so that's the personality and sexual preference spectrum. There's a couple more spectrums that we need to identify. Actually, let's come back to that for one second, because again, I said that this is kind of a guess. All right, because we don't really know. Truth is, society has huge impact on us. Okay, if I were to draw a guess at what modern American society would be, it would probably look a little bit different. Okay, because we have concepts that we're told since birth, such as, well, just the use of the words gay and straight influence us from a very young age. So ours would probably look something like this. Okay. I'll show you in a second. Okay, this would probably be somewhere close to 20th century America or whatever. In that we got pushed to the margin. So you had this would be straight, bisexuality or people that participate in both, maybe lower. We actually don't know. Okay, because we don't collect. The data we collect on this is. We don't have information from everybody, okay? We're starting to with the internet, which is actually interesting. Just from what people are searching, we're getting more information. But we'd have straight people here, and then what we would consider the gay bump, okay? Which, when I was growing up, there were estimates of 10%, 5%, or whatever. But again, these numbers don't necessarily mean all that much because we don't know exactly where people would be organically, all right? This is a representation of a previous slide, okay, in the 4 boxes. And you can see the 4 boxes represented by the 4 little bumps in population, okay? And what happened was because we had the understanding of you're either gay or straight, and then you're either male or female, and it's divided into 4, everyone got kind of pushed to the margins, all right? Now, we know that this is not necessarily how humans are because other societies have exhibited completely different dynamics in terms of sexual preference. Right now I'm going to do ancient Greece, Hellenic world, into Hellenistic, into Roman, okay? They very much appreciated male and male relationships, okay? This was a sign of masculinity. This was a sign of virility in that you could have a male relationship. In fact, you were supposed to. All right? So you can see that's completely counter to how we operate currently in our understanding of male sexuality. Okay? I'm not actually going to even put females on here because for very many people in the ancient world, females were not even regarded as having any importance in terms of their sexuality. Okay, the males were essentially the only ones who counted. All right, and So they were held in low regard, women, for the most part in the ancient world. That isn't always the case, and it certainly is a generalization. All generalizations are false, but by and large, the ancient world was dominated by males, and you were supposed to engage in male-male relations to solidify that. Women were essentially vessels for carrying babies. Okay, so we have that. Now, if we were to remove all social information on what you were supposed to do, or people said that you were supposed to do, or essentially the norms or sexual norms of your society, independent of all that, it may look something more like our original curve. Okay, but we can never ever say this with 100% assurance. All right, so that's one aspect of well, the sexual preference spectrum. Another interesting thing about sexual interest in terms of humanity is not everybody, well, for you it won't always be the same, okay? It does change over time. Some people have, well, children should have no sexual interest, all right? Then it begins right about puberty and will, as you age, will generally decrease. Again, this is a generalization, just a helpful tool. Okay, one group of people that I've left off entirely is something known as asexuality, and we don't have an exact number on the percentage of people that exhibit this. And again, this is just a helpful scale to kind of illustrate what we're talking about here. Is some people seemingly have zero interest in sex. Okay, it just does not. Occur to them as a thing to do or have any interest in it. Some people are very sexualized and spend a lot of time and energy on sex. Okay, generally most people fall in the people falling in the middle. Okay, you can see this is the bell curve. Is they have a medium amount of interest in sex. Okay, and again, it will change over time, and there's a variety of factors that will fluctuate. So it doesn't fluctuate, but just because I did not want to leave people that don't have sexual interest off of my chart, there's that one for sexual interest. And again, there are a number of people that are asexual and have no interest in sex. Okay, so this was a very rough, all right, but we did our best understanding of personality and what we would call sexual preference. It is, although personality can be related to gender, and your interests can be, all right, this is not a intersection of gender and sexual preference, because as we'll see, that is gender does not, as we've seen, gender does not necessarily indicate sexual preference. So hopefully this made some sense and that you feel a little bit better and have some understanding of personality and sexual interest. So thanks again, and I'll see you guys next time.